But the truth about pain is the messenger. Pain is the portal to bliss. But if we don't go into the pain, and that's what I did that night when I healed, I metaphorically wrapped my arms around the pain for the first time and just hugged it and said, thank you for coming and showing me what I did not know. Thank you for getting loud enough and painful enough that I would pay attention.
Welcome back to my channel. I'm so grateful that you come back here and listen, watch, and learn. I am so excited to interview this amazing individual today. Her name is Angela Dawn. She is a mother of 4 incredible kids and is married to her beloved alchemical companion. She's a vibrational alignment coach and a teacher of spiritual attunement. Over the last 8 years, she has coached thousands of individuals and networks through personal transformation. She specializes in coaching individuals and couples regarding quantum entanglement and balancing the divine feminine and divine masculine. Her life's work revolves around recognizing and understanding the patterns that exist in quantum entanglement. Her purpose came to light after her own spontaneous healing as a result of transmuting generational ancestral patterns she had uncovered. Termed by many as a miraculous healing, she was shown by spirit that it was the natural result of cleansing her body of its karmic past. Upon purging her karma, her Kundalini energy was able to rise, allowing her to fully awaken. Through the unfolding of her life, she awakened a psychic gift to see things that others have difficulty understanding. This has given her an ability to tread lightly through life. She is here to inspire others to remain open to the infinite light that self-awareness brings, that has developed processes that purposefully awaken this light within. As a linguist, she makes complex ideas regarding spirituality simple. She has written a number of personal development and coaching courses, as well as mental, emotional content for various companies. She's most passionate about Gnosis, as this is what we're all here to do, to become increasingly aware of who, what, and why we are. She's currently working on writing 2 books, as well as creating an integration course for KAP, ketamine applied psychotherapy, to be used at a local ketamine clinic. Angie, welcome to my show. I'm so excited to interview you today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Let's dive in right away. I would love to know your story about healing, and I would like you to start with how you came across healing as well, because I think a lot of people are struggling with something and unhappy with their life, and they don't really know what to do, and they're not even aware that they need to heal themselves. So I would love to know how you came across healing and how your healing journey went.
All right, well, I will just start. Okay, so mine all started, the very beginning of my story started in about 1998, and I had just gotten married, and I noticed that I wasn't 100% good with the decision I'd made for who I was marrying. And in that, I had 2 guys, though, that wanted to marry me at the same time. So I felt a tug, almost like a tug of war with my heart and my head. And so I started immediately wondering, there must be a right choice and there must be a wrong choice. And it got me very polarized to, if I get it wrong, then I'm going to be miserable. If I get it right, then I'm going to be happy. And so my happiness was wrapped up in that choice, not so much as checking in with my heart and saying, what do you want? You know, it was more like, well, what makes sense? I ought to marry the one that makes sense. So that's what I did. I chose the one that made sense and immediately started feeling like I'd made a mistake. And it took me into deep, deep shame. Like, what have I done? I've ruined my life. I've ruined his life. My heart's not in this. And yet, because of all my conditioning, my programming from growing up, the things that I'd heard, the things I was taught to believe, one was my religion that I was raised in. And they just polarized me even more, that now I can't get out of this because the religion I was raised in didn't believe in divorce. And so I stayed and stayed and stayed. And about 4 months into my marriage, I started getting extreme back pain. It was low back pain down by like your tailbone or your sacrum. And it started getting worse and worse to where I couldn't even walk straight. I couldn't stand straight. I was slumped or twisted, and people started wondering if I had scoliosis. I went to dozens of doctors. None of them knew what was wrong with me. I took x-rays and MRIs and all these things that the doctors were doing to check my body, and none of them showed any signs of anything being wrong. But I was in extreme pain. And so I kept going to doctors until it'd been about 8 years with this pain. And I finally, well, every doctor wanted me to take prescription medication. They wanted me to take pain pills. And it didn't make sense to me that they wanted to put me on a pill when they didn't know what was wrong with me. So I didn't take any of them. I just kept living with the pain. And about 8 years later, I started deciding that if the doctors don't know what's going on with me, then I'm going to start figuring it out. So I started studied many, many books. One of my favorite was this book. It's called Feelings Buried Alive, Never Die. And that was my first introduction in 2005 to what I call the science of being, that our thoughts cause how we feel, and how we feel generates an energy with which we act. And or beliefs, the deep, deep subconscious beliefs that get entered into our heart, we start to manifest. And the book just really made sense and resonated with me, but I didn't understand all of it. So I actually read that book about 5 times in 1 year. And I just kept reading and reading and reading so I could understand it. And lo and behold, I did. I started to understand to a deep level what she was saying in the book, the author was saying. And then she has a script in the book that talks about basically commanding or demanding your cells listen to you and alter the way that you believe. So I did the script. I sat down with myself one evening and I did some mental visioning. And then I also did some I am mirror work. And then I did her script and a few other things. I really tried to enter the feeling of how will it feel if I were to wake up tomorrow and walk pain-free. So I did all these things, and the next morning I woke up and I was pain-free. And for me, it was like, whoa, this is a miracle. And my husband at the time even said, what has happened? This is a miracle. And I said, well, I don't know, because I know what I did, and I know why I got this result. So to me, it wasn't exactly a miracle, but it was pretty incredible. And so people started asking me, family and friends, like, what happened? You're not in pain anymore. And I only shared the story with a few close friends and family. And then I kind of stayed quiet for about 6 years till about 2012. And then I felt an urge to just start sharing my story because for whatever reason, and I want to say that it was maybe more like a intuition or spirit pushing me to speak what had happened. I actually started being surrounded by lots of people that had low back pain, and they didn't know that one of the meanings for low back pain, one of the feelings that causes low back pain, is a feeling you're in the wrong place, the wrong relationship, or the wrong geographical like job or where you live, just the wrong place. And so I started helping a number of people that way. And then a couple years later, I got Bob Proctor certified in 2014. and started working with his coaching course. And then in 2016, I started writing my own courses and doing my own coaching, workbooks and courses and coursework. And but what it really came down to was I felt like I was in the wrong relationship. And that was hard to face because, again, my religious upbringing fought against that belief system. So they were just kind of doing this. And I thought, wow, well, I got to stay in this marriage. So even after I healed, I stayed married to my husband for another 7 years. And then I just decided, my heart's not in this. I need to follow my heart. And I put it to rest for so many years. And even by that time I had 4 kids, and I just thought, how, but I still followed my heart. And as I went through my divorce in 2014 and 2015, I moved all over. So from 2008 to 2016, I lived all over the United States in different states all over. And then I ended up back in my hometown in 2016, and then started my own coaching company, got things moving. And I ended up in a meeting one day. There was about 80 people there. And the very first time I showed up, I sat down in my chair and I noticed this guy across the room, and my energy was just drawn to him. And I didn't know why. I'd never felt anything like it. And I thought, what is going on here? Well, to understand this feeling of being in the wrong relationship, I had inherited it from my mom. And my mom, I'd heard her say growing up just a couple of times, it really wasn't very often, but I heard her say, I should have married Zeke. And when I was in high school, I asked her, who is this Zeke you're talking about? Like, that's not Dad's name. So if you didn't marry him, who was he? And she told me, well, Zeke was a man I was in love with before I met your dad. They had a 7-year relationship, and she thought they were going to get married, and Zeke never asked her to marry him. And then when she got engaged to my dad, Zeke showed up at her house and asked her, what are you doing? You knew we were going to get married. And my mom said, well, you never asked me, so I'm moving on with my life. And so as I looked back over my life, by the time I was about 30, so in about 2005, I was kind of reviewing my life and noticing things. I remembered that conversation with my mom. I remembered her saying it a few times growing up that she wished she'd married Zeke. And then by that time, I realized that's what was playing in my mind. My broken record that just kept cycling was, I'm with the wrong person. I'm in the wrong relationship. And so I started thinking about that and going, I think this is a program. It's a belief system that I have in my own mind that it's literally just a program. And if I let it go, I can move on with my life. And the interesting thing was my mom had the same back pain as me. And her mom, my maternal grandmother, had the same back pain. So we were all manifesting this low back pain. And I knew they were all linked. So I started to study that book, and I started to understand these deep subconscious beliefs that I really didn't understand or know anything about before that. And so as I visited that, again, fast forward to 2016, I walk into that meeting and that man just feels so familiar. It pulls my energy to him. And a few months later, he asked me on a date. And when we were on our date, he asked me why I do coaching and how I do mindset reprogramming. And I told him about this story of my mom and how I got this belief system by hearing my mom say I should have married Zeke. And, you probably know how a belief is created, right? It's constant spaced repetition of words or a strong emotional impact. By hearing my mom say that, it was a strong emotional impact because I only heard her say it a couple times. but it instilled a deep fear in me that I could get it wrong when it was time for me to get married, that I could make the wrong choice and I could be as unhappy as she seemed to be. So that fear was so alive in me that I made it real. So I had to, see what I believed. I had to live it. And so there I was living out my belief. And this gentleman, I was sharing all of this with him and told him that my mom said I should have married Zeke. And when I got to the end of the story, he looked at me kind of stunned or surprised. And he just said, "What a strange story." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, Angie, my dad's name is Zeke." And I said, "Wait, what?" I was so like shocked. And he said, "Yeah." And one of the things I told him was that my mom and my dad and Zeke were all in a choir together. So they all got together every week and sang in this big choir. And he remembered that part of the story. And he said, "So they were in a choir. Was the name of the choir the Sacra Dulce Choir?" And I said, "Yeah, how do you know the name of the choir?" He goes, "That's because my dad was in that choir. My dad is Zeke." And I went, "Oh my goodness." And right then I knew we were quantum entangled because 3 months prior, I'd been studying quantum entanglement. And really, spirit or intuition had just told me, you need to start understanding quantum physics, quantum entanglement. So I had been studying it for a few months. And so when he said he was Zeke's son, I said, "That's why I recognized you." My body literally could feel that entanglement between your dad and my mom. So what is fascinating about it, and so I go on and I teach people how that entanglement is affecting their life. We feel anxiety, and sometimes we try looking for the reason. It might not be our anxiety, it might be our parents' anxiety, and we're literally feeling it and trying to find a solution for it, right? And so after we had dated for a few months, I noticed a scar on on his back, and it was about 7 inches long. It was a big scar, but it was right where my back hurt all those years. So I asked him, I said, "What happened to your back?" And he said, "Oh, I slipped in the shower a few years ago, and I don't even know why. It's like somebody just swept my feet out from under me and I fell, and his elbow cracked the soap dish, the ceramic soap dish or porcelain soap dish, and it caused a sharp edge, and his back sliced across it, and it cut 1.5 inches deep into his back and cut both of his arteries, and he almost bled to death." And he said, "Yeah, so they were able to stitch my back up and save me." And I thought, wow, that's incredible. And a few months later, it occurred to me to ask him, "When did that happen to your back?" And he said, "Well, it was the spring of 2006 on a Saturday night." And I said, "That's strange because I healed my back the spring of 2006 on a Saturday night." So we looked at his pictures from the hospital. We looked in my journal because I write in my journal, and we both had we recognized that they both happened on the same night. So I healed my back the same night he cut his back open. And if you know about energy, energy can be transmuted and changed, but it can't be destroyed. It has to have an outlet. It has to have a place to move. Energy moves. And I immediately understood that what was happening was this quantum entanglement. What happens to one happens to the other in a very like manner. So in quantum entanglement, it's like when one does something, the other one is acted on. And when one does another, the other one's acted on. So instead of like cause and effect, we have to think in terms of causing an effect and affecting a cause. And that's how entanglement works. So they're both working together at all times to move energy. So because I went in and did the mental and emotional work, which is the feminine side, he had to experience the masculine side, which is the physicality of it. I know this sounds strange, but it's so true. And the reason I recognize that is because in the few years, we've now been together for 3.5 years, and there was a day he got in a car accident and injured his thigh, But before I even knew about the car accident, my thigh started hurting, my leg, and I was rubbing it. And then when he came and met me, he's like, "Why are you rubbing your leg?" I said, "It's been hurting." And he goes, "That's the one I just hurt in my car accident." And I went, "That's weird," because I didn't do anything to my leg. There was another time when I tripped in my bedroom and hit my finger on my dresser and bruised it. And he, the same day, same time, dropped a candy dish at work and went to pick it up and sliced his finger open in the same spot. So we've started recognizing that we're constantly in like a push and pull, which is the electromagnetic field of the universe. And we are entangled together. And so what happens to one is happening to the other in a similar way, but not always exactly the same way.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. I have goosebumps listening to your story because it's just so amazing, and it sounds like a miracle, but it's all happened. It's all the facts, and you experienced
Right.
all of that. Yeah, that is so fantastic.
Well, and it's understanding the laws. I'd been studying the laws, the universal laws, for, I don't know, at least 6 to 7 years when I met him. So I was understanding them, but this took it to a whole new level. It, made my mind just kind of get blown apart.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that understanding the laws really helped you understand about what you've inherited from ancestors, from your mom, and how you what you can do about it. You had the back pain, and I feel like a lot of people might have some pain in their body, but they don't really look at it. They don't take it seriously. Like you said, you didn't take painkiller, but I think a lot of people actually just take that and then just go with it, just live their life. What
Yeah.
do you think made you kind of realize that, okay, I have to look into this, like I have to really take it seriously and understand myself?
There was a few things. One was that I'd seen almost like 10 to 12 doctors and none of them knew what was going on. And so then it just occurred to me one day, well, if they can't figure it out, I'll try and figure this out, because I was a young woman. I was just in my 20s, and I couldn't imagine living the rest of my life with back pain that made it uncomfortable to sit or stand or walk or run. I'd always been very active as a child, so I didn't want to be crippled or in pain for the rest of my life. So reading and studying a little bit seemed like it was worth it to at least try and find a solution. And so I kind of opened myself up to start looking in places, which really opened my mind, because most of us, we live in a box, right? We live in a paradigm. And by saying, I wonder, maybe there's something I don't know. And I started looking, it made me open my mind to say, what else is there? What else could it be? Instead of only trust the doctors, we put so much trust outside of ourselves instead of knowing that the answers are within. And that's one of the things that this entire experience has given me, is to understand that I have the answers inside if I will just go in and look, right?
Mm.
Yeah. And you're right, with pain, most human beings want to mask it. They just want the pain to go away. But the truth about pain is the messenger. Pain is the portal to bliss. But if we don't go into the pain, and that's what I did that night when I healed, I metaphorically wrapped my arms around the pain for the first time and just hugged it and said, thank you for coming and showing me what I did not know. Thank you for getting loud enough and painful enough that I would pay attention. And yet most of us want to just avoid the pain. We run from it. But if we will go into the pain, it's the same as what like a lot of shamans do. They heal by going into the pain, not running from it. So I learned that lesson too, that pain is just a messenger. And if we'll ask the pain, which is really what I started doing, I was asking my body, knowing my body's listening to me. So I started understanding how much my negative thought patterns had affected my body, because negativity causes cell decay. My body was breaking down, and positivity causes cell growth. So I knew that I had such a negative story in my mind about my life. I'm married to the wrong person. What a debilitating story. It ended up causing debilitating pain. So it was really just the manifestation of that story as well as it could be. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I love that you said the pain is the messenger. It's actually trying to help you pay attention and pay attention to the things that you need to change rather than avoiding it or just killing it with a painkiller. Um, if for the people who are suffering from the pain right now and they don't know what they need to do, what can they do to really look within and almost like, yeah, like you say, hug and welcome that pain? What can they do as kind of like a simple step or an easy step that they can take today?
Yeah, you just mentioned that pain is trying to get your attention. And it is, because the way that consciousness works is that what we pay attention to, we notice more. And when we notice something more, we experience more fullness of it. So if you run from your pain or you mask it, you're just going to keep having to run from it and keep masking it. It's going to just get louder and louder and louder. So with any of your body pain, your emotional pain, it's just trying to get your attention so that you will notice more. And when I say notice more, the moment you pay attention to it, you start getting messages. But if you notice how much you run from it, you're not going to get those messages because you're not paying attention to it. You're trying to shush it like a little child, like, be quiet, don't speak right now. And you need to turn and listen to it and say, hey, what are you saying? You might lay down on your bed one day or sit in meditation and just ask the question, what are you trying to tell me that I'm not seeing?
Mhm.
Help me see what I'm not seeing. That simple question, if you have an open mind, it will start to speak words of wisdom to you, and you'll start to get ideas. It might be read a book. My first, when I started to open my mind, was that it was, you need to study. And lo and behold, the very next day, I'm sitting with a girlfriend and she says, oh, I haven't read this book yet, but you might want it. It's this book called Feelings Buried Alive, Never Die. And I went, okay. And I recognized that, yeah, that's the messenger. Okay, I'm going to get the book. And I started reading it, right? So we are awareness, consciousness, and consciousness just expands. It's not going to go from here to here in one jump. You have to allow more information in. Information changes your DNA. So that's all DNA is information. So if you read a book, it's going to cause you to think differently, which will cause you to act differently. So you can actually expand and expand and expand. And that's what I suggest is if you're finding yourself in pain, whether that's physical pain or emotional pain, just one, open yourself up beyond where you've always looked. Look in directions and places that you've never looked before, and talk to people you don't talk to regularly. That's really you getting out of your paradigm or out of your circle. If the answer were within your paradigm or in your circle, you'd already have it, but it's beyond where you are right now. So reach outward. And I had to start studying energy and frequency and vibration. And that wasn't something I was raised with. In fact, more or less, my parents and my religion were saying, don't go there, don't read that stuff, don't study that. And I just had to say, no, I feel like it. I feel like reading that. My heart's pulled to this. I want to, study that. And I got outside of my current, paradigm.
Yeah, I love that you said about information can change your DNA because DNA is the information. Because I think a lot of people think that, I used to also think that, oh, I have this gene, I have this DNA, so I can't change. My parents are this kind of person, they're lazy, so I'm lazy, like, and that's actually the paradigm that you have. And also I can see that the paradigm that people are having is, oh yeah, it seems I remember now. It seems like what you're telling me is actually the pain is telling us our ignorance, like what we need to pay attention and study and turn this ignorance to understanding and deeper understanding, so that you can heal yourself, you can understand yourself better rather than changing the outside, actually understanding you, like you as a human, the body, the mind, and that actually leads to healing.
Yes,
That is
a-
so powerful.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is the truth. And, I've done a lot of conferences or retreats and different things. And I remember this one gentleman once, I was talking about my story and sharing that, the idea of belief systems that create our reality. And he came up to me after the conference was over and he said, "So I just have one question for you." And I said, "What?" And he said, "When am I going to get cancer?" And I said, "Well, you don't have cancer right now." And he said, "No." And I said, "Why do you think you're going to get cancer?" And he goes, "Because my mom has cancer and my dad has cancer." And I said, "Okay, but if you keep thinking and believing you're going to get cancer, you will. But if you will realize that their reality does not have to be your reality, that your belief is even stronger than your DNA. So change your belief and you can change your DNA. You can change the story that's written about you inside your DNA." And he was like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." But that goes to what you were saying, that we often, like, if my parents are lazy, well, then I'm just lazy. And if my parents have cancer, then I'm going to have cancer. That's the old thinking. And we need to let go of this old way of thinking because it isn't true. And it's giving our personal power away, you know?
That is so true. I hear so many people say about that, like, well, my like generation, my grandparents have cancer and my parents have cancer, so I'm gonna have cancer. I better check my health like every month or every year. I hear it all the time, but that is also the paradigm. Yeah, that is so true.
Yeah. And we think about it with body types, we think about it with careers. Well, my dad was a dentist. I'm going to be a dentist. And it's like, why? Is that what you want? Well, it just makes sense. No, it really doesn't make sense. Why would you do something just because your dad did it? Is it
Mm,
going to make you happy? Are you going to enjoy it? Is it what you really want that's going to fill your heart? So it's learning to follow our heart versus following our head. But we do want to get our head and our heart coherent and talking to each other, you know, because it's not just about going through life willy-nilly. Um, you don't want to leave a trail of dust behind you. You want to um, be aware, and awareness arrives before even an experience can be had. So we want to understand that about awareness, that you are the light of awareness. That's why you are. But if you aren't aware, you can't have that experience. So I wasn't aware that I could be healthy before I started understanding my feelings and my emotions and my beliefs. And once I understood all that, I went, wait a minute, I'm going to write a new story. I'm going to create a new outcome, you know? But I didn't know any of that before. So I couldn't even experience it because I wasn't aware of it.
mm. You mentioned the writing a new story, but I would love to know, how did you let go of this the paradigm or the story that you're telling to yourself?
The one with the back pain,
Mhm.
well, so I had to understand that that was my mom's belief. One, I realized, oh, she thought she was in the wrong relationship. So then I started looking at her relationship, and to be quite honest, my mom and dad were very miserable. They were not, to me, they weren't in love. It wasn't my idea of love. Now, they stayed married, and my mom passed away a few years ago. My dad's still around, but they stayed married their whole life. But ironically, interestingly, my mom got Alzheimer's a few years after I healed. So I couldn't really talk to her about my experience. And when I understand the reason for Alzheimer's is feeling you want to be in another place, feeling you want to be with someone else. And so I was like, wow, she's lived with this feeling of believing she's with the wrong person. Now she's wanting an escape, and she has got the perfect escape. She now has Alzheimer's and she doesn't even know where she is. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's completely escaped life now. And so for me, I understood that that was her belief. And in ignorance, she kept that belief going. But I didn't want to be ignorant any longer. And I recognized that, okay, I did marry this man and he's a good man. And I can choose to be in this marriage and be okay with this choice, or I can keep rejecting the choice I made, even though I have to live with it. So by rejecting my choice, I was rejecting a part of me, because it was an experience that brought me into greater awareness. So by having that experience, even though it was about 9 years of back pain, I was all of a sudden grateful for it. It was like, wow, I never could have learned this lesson. If the pain didn't speak loud enough, I wouldn't be as aware as I am today. So from here moving forward, I can make better choices. I can make sure I'm listening to my heart and my mind, because that time I was only listening to my mind, right? And it was such black and white thinking. I could get it right or I could get it wrong. And if I got it wrong, then I was going to be in big trouble, and I wasn't going to be happy with myself. So it's reframing it and starting to see the gratitude, starting to see the hidden gifts, right? So that night, as I did heal, when I wrapped my arms around my pain and was grateful for my pain, I really believe that's one of the reasons it turned everything around, because I truly felt gratitude. I wasn't angry at my mom. I wasn't angry at my back pain anymore. But up to that point, I had spent every day like hating my body because it was in so much pain. I just wanted it all to go away. And so I was really rejecting myself in every way. I wasn't listening to myself. I wasn't listening to the pain. I was thinking I did it wrong, all these things. So once I found gratitude, and I call that reframing. I'm sure in your coaching business, you probably do stuff with gratitude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So gratitude helps us to see the positive when all we're seeing is the negative. So we can look at it from both ends instead of just one end. If we only see it from one side, it's lopsided. We want to balance the scales. And so we want to come into balance. You can think about it balance this way or alignment this way, where your head and your heart and your actions are all in alignment. And that's what I achieved, was that alignment with myself. And even though years later I chose to get divorced, that was then a conscious choice. I was actually choosing it and saying, yep, this is the choice I'm going to make. And I was okay with it because I chose it. It wasn't happening to me. I was creating the next step in my life. I was creating the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story. Yes, it does. And I think it's really powerful when you make a decision, like I'm choosing this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just go for it. I think a lot of people, you mentioned that you use the gratitude for your mom and yourself, but before that you were hating that. you had this negative feeling towards it. And I feel like a lot of people are struggling with forgiving others and also themselves because of what
Uh,
they did to them, to themselves in the past, or what other people did to them in the past. And how did you kind of change your mindset to appreciate or forgive others and also yourself?
Yeah, so I call it looking for the hidden gift or looking for the silver lining. We go through life and we are here to learn a lot of lessons because, again, it's consciousness. We're here to become more and more and more conscious. How do we become more conscious? Through lessons. We have to have experiences that help us know. Experience is the greatest teacher. So we have to have some experiences that are wonderful and some experiences that are not so wonderful, that are hard and difficult. Um, and so as we go through life, we're always usually okay with the wonderful experiences. But when we have difficult experiences, we get angry, we get frustrated, we get mad, and bitter. And it's in those moments when something is hard and difficult that I've learned to ask myself, well, all right, I'm learning something now, but if I don't learn it now, how else would I want to have this lesson delivered to me? I've talked to individuals. I've, like I said, I've worked with a lot of people, and I had a set of sisters that one sister had lost a child to death, and the other sister had had breast cancer. They're not my sisters, but these two women were sisters. And when I was working with them, I asked them, the one that had breast cancer, I said, would you ever want to lose a child instead of have breast cancer? And she goes, no way. I would never. I would go through breast cancer over and over and over again. And the woman who lost the child, I said, would you want to have breast cancer? She goes, I don't think I could handle it. I don't think I could handle it. I would not change my scenario. And so we all will have to go through difficult things. No one's life is perfect. So for me, it's asking, all right, how else would I have wanted this lesson to have come to me? How else would I have wanted to learn about alignment and listening to my head and my heart? And how much better than to have a love story that I learned how to listen to my heart by a love story, right? My mom's love story, my grandma's love story, my love story. It started to make sense. I went, oh, so my heart does matter. How I feel matters,
Mm.
you know? So look at your situation, whatever it may be, and ask yourself, all right, if I don't go through this and learn the lesson this way, how else will the universe teach me this lesson? Because it could, it could teach me any other way. It could sweep my feet out from under me. It could smack me upside the head. What do I want? A car accident? Like, what would it be? Might not want it any other way. And then that starts to help you while you're in the middle of it go, okay, maybe this is the best delivery for me to learn this lesson.
Mm. I love your perspective. That is true. They don't want to change the past to, especially to the worst worst scenario, but they're still struggling with accepting what happened, which we can't change at all anymore. But we can choose to learn the lesson from it or still reject it, right?
Right. And that is it. And know that if you're rejecting something that's happening to you or for you, you're actually rejecting a part of you.
Mm.
And that's like self-betrayal. And when we experience betrayal is one of the worst traumas to experience. So if you betray yourself, then you're really wounding yourself even more. So you kind of have to just keep giving yourself self-love. Like, that's part of it too, is listen to your body. What is your body asking for? Does it need a break? Does it need a bath? Does it need a walk? Does it need 5 minutes alone? And honor yourself instead of always pushing your own needs aside and trying to honor everyone else. Because if your cup isn't full, if you don't have the energy to serve others, then then your service really isn't a pure-hearted service. It's more programming service. Well, my parents told me to help people, so I'm just helping people. And it doesn't come from a heart of, I really want to be here and help you. But you can only come from a full heart when your heart is full. So meet your needs, and then you have the energy and the capacity to help and serve others in a way that's really, truly helpful.
Yeah, that is so true and so powerful. And especially I'm born and raised in Japan, where women, I wouldn't say everybody, but women tend to just serve in the family, and they don't know how to love themselves or prioritize themselves. But the truth is that you have to be full of yourself, full of love, so that you can give to other people, you can serve others. And when you're empty, you can't really give anything because you don't have anything inside yourself. Mm.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
I would like to talk about your coaching business, and
Okay.
I'm curious, what kind of clients reach out to you, and what kind of outcome or something that they're looking for by working with you?
Yeah, a lot of my clients reach out to me usually because they feel some upset in their life. I do help people get to a point where they can understand manifestation and everything, but real manifestation comes from someone in alignment. So if they're having emotional pain or trauma, or physical pain or trauma, a lot of individuals will come to me and want to understand their pain. I have a completely different approach than therapists. Um, I call myself a metaphysician. I really get into the beliefs. And when I hear people talk, I can hear their beliefs like that. So I can just tell them, oh, that's one of your beliefs right there. That's a belief. And then they go, oh, so I'm kind of like a sounding board. I don't have a lot of judgment. I'm kind of an individual without guile. And that has given me the ability to not say that's right or that's wrong. I just say that's either serving you or that's not serving you. And I could tell you why right now, and so that's one of the things I do when I sit with clients and work with them. I also have a number of coaching courses that I've written and created, and I take people through a process to reprogram their mind or their DNA and really light up their DNA so that they have epiphanies and they have aha moments and they have synchronicities and they start to make connections that they weren't making before, and they start to see their world through a lens that is a lens of possibility instead of impossibility. And so that's kind of some of the stuff I do with clients in coaching. I either see them over a long period of time. I can work with clients from 3 to 6 to 12 months or longer. And then I can also just meet clients for one session and talk to them about what they're doing with their energy, and if they're sending it in a helpful way or a hurtful way for their future. So
Mm. Yeah, I love that you see clients without judgment, just working as a sounding board, or what I learned from my coaching school is like just holding the mirror and just showing them what's going on in them, rather than us telling them like, hey, this is wrong, this is right, you should do this, you shouldn't do this. We're just holding a mirror and then showing them, hey, this is your belief. Is this serving you? Is this not serving you? I absolutely love that you do that.
yeah, that's one, like, that helps them so much because oftentimes we don't listen to ourselves talk.
Yeah,
But when you're the sounding board and you can just reflect it back to them like a mirror, they go, is that what I sounded like? Is that what I said? Like, yeah, you did. Is that really what you want to believe? They're like, oh, you know,
yes,
yeah.
yes. We are unconsciously having so much areas that we think we know, but we actually don't. Like, we're not aware of all the beliefs that we might have. And I'm actually having so many aha moments as I'm listening to you, like, oh, I might believe this because my parents are this, you know, things like that, which I thought I knew, but I actually didn't know. And by listening to yourself, like you said, we don't really have any opportunity to really listen to ourselves, even when we think that when we talk to our friends, they listen to us. But actually, if you're just talking to your friends, then they're thinking about what they're going to say next. And you're thinking about what you're going to say next. So it's not really 100% listening. And without judgment, it's a bit hard as, you know, friends and family members. So having a coach as a sounding board is really powerful to really understand your belief systems and yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It
love
really is. And a lot of people need that. They need to hear themselves, you know? And
that.
that's one of the things I do suggest to a lot of clients is, do you ever listen when you speak? And they're like, what? I'm like, do you ever listen to your own voice when you speak? And they go, oh, I said, just practice that more. Just practice hearing what you're saying. And then you'll start catching yourself more. It's that whole thing of what you pay attention to expands. So if you start paying attention to what you're hearing when you speak, you'll go, oh, wow. And one of the side effects to that type of awareness is many times when I coach individuals, they start tripping over their words. They'll they'll stutter, or they'll say, oh, I'm not finding the right word. And it's because they start to realize how powerful their own words are. And so they try to find a better word to say exactly what they mean instead of just blurt something out, you know. And I just tell them, I'm like, no, this is just a part of becoming more aware. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just trying to find the right words, and it's okay. This is part of that expansion of awareness.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And even myself, when I'm being coached by my coach, I say some words and they ask me the definition of what do you mean by compassion, or what do you mean by vulnerability, or whatever it is. And I really have to think, and I realize like how ignorant I am to use these words in everyday life. And I think I understand the meaning, but I actually don't. And it's so interesting to go into the belief system and what you actually telling to yourself in everyday life as well, like because we're not really aware of our self-talk usually.
Right. You know, it's interesting because I noticed as I got more and more self-aware, I would take my dictionary app, and if I used a word and I realized, did I use that right? Like I'd have a little question like, was that the best word? So I'd look it up, figure out what it means, and go, wow, I didn't know that that's what that meant, you know, or yeah, that's the right word. Because sometimes I find the right word and it surprises me. I'll use a word I hardly have ever used before and go, where did that come from? And I look it up to make sure I use the right word and it's right. And I go, wow, like that's more of an expansion of awareness. You know, you can find the right words the more in tune you are. So yeah, and words are energy. So you do want to use the right word. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so true. um I would love to know, what do you see is the greatest challenge that people who you work with have, like the root cause of their problems, or what they're struggling with?
Well, I would probably say that the hardest thing for clients to grasp is the real significance that beliefs have in their life. Because a lot of people believe beliefs are just their life. Like they don't realize that, no, that's a belief and that's a belief. I tell people everything that's creating your entire world is beliefs. Belief is the law of life. So do you want what you're getting, or do you want something different? And it kind of goes back to what you and I were saying, that, you know, if you're raised with lazy parents, you just think parents are lazy. So that when you get to become a parent, you're just going to be lazy. And it's like, no, that's a belief. But from their perspective, the lens that they're seeing through at that point, they're going, nuh-uh, all parents are lazy. I'm like, no, they're not. Not all parents are lazy. And so just to understand belief, that is one of the first fundamental things. It's like a hurdle that when people can get over that and really start to be aware that everything in their surroundings and their reality is been based on belief, that now they could start to kind of play with their life like clay, and they can start to form it how they want it and not how their parents had it, and they can start to build something more that that when they look back, they'll go, wow, I don't even recognize who I used to be. I've changed so much. And it doesn't usually happen all at once. It is personal development or spiritual development is a lifelong engagement. When you start to become more aware, you realize, wow, I don't know anything. And then you just, starting like a baby. So I really feel like it's belief, which is funny because it seems like such a simple answer, but there's so much wrapped up in our beliefs that if they can just finally grasp that then they go, oh, okay, there's so much going on here.
Yeah, I can see that because beliefs are kind of like accumulated in all of life, or something that could be coming from your ancestors also, that you probably haven't heard in your life, but because they believe something particular, and then your grandparents, parents believe, and you just unconsciously believe something that is actually not serving you. And
Yeah.
I think it just really hard to go to that belief, like realize that belief that you have, unless like we talked about, you have a pain or you have something that you're really struggling with, then you need to pay attention. Then you have an opportunity to actually realize that, hey, I have this belief that's not serving me. I need to let go.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. And I think for the people who are not really familiar with the words like paradigm, or they've never actually thought of like their belief systems and things like that, but they know that life has more, and they're not fully happy with their life, what can they do today to start looking into their belief system, or what can they do to feel better and make their life better?
Well, one of a simple exercise that I like to share with people is, one, you got to know what you want. What is it that, you're not happy with? So usually we have to know the contrast in our lives. We have to know what we don't want in order to know what we do want. And so if they can know, usually that's why they come to you, I'm not happy with this, or I don't like that. Then now you got to get more clear on what it is you do want. So if someone comes to me with relationship issues, I tell them to start writing down a list of all the things you want in a relationship. Characteristics, not physical like attributes, but characteristics. You want fun? Do you want laughter? Do you want joy? Do you want, health? What do you want in a relationship? And then I tell them to write this list, and then at the top of the list, write me. And then post it somewhere where they're going to see it regularly and read through it regularly, whether it's right as they go to bed at night, right when they wake up. And the more they focus on all these things, they become them. And then they will attract that person, because they will now be all the things that they're looking for. And then, of course, that's going to be attractive to someone else that is those things. So there's that. So what do you want in love? And the other part to it is, what does love smell like, taste like, feel like, sound like, and look like to you? So get familiar with, what does love feel like? Oh, it feels like a hug, or it feels like holding hands, or it feels like looking in each other's eyes. What does it smell like? And then start thinking of smells that just bring, because this now gets you into the physiology of love. And so you start to surround yourself in that feeling, and you're bringing the feeling of love to you. And what words would you like to hear in a loving relationship? How does that sound? Does someone speak kindly? Do they, yell at you? What does love sound like? And so you start to think about those ways. And so the more that you kind of visit your characteristics and your senses, then you'll start to, the senses is more of like an exercise to sit in it and just kind of bring it all to you, right? But the characteristics is something you do once, and then you just keep coming back to it and reading it over and over and over, because it's bringing it back into your awareness. And so those will kind of get people attuned to love in their way, because everyone's idea of love is different. So you have to know what love is to you, not what was love to your mom and what was love to your dad and to your grandparents, because you're going to get that over again. You already have those programs. Now you got to know what it is to you. And that was part of mine, and then meeting my husband, my second husband, and having that love story. It was funny because when we met, I said, what were you after all these years? And he's like, I just always knew that there was a better way to love. And I said, oh, that's interesting, because his parents weren't happy. And my parents weren't happy. And he said, what about you? And I said, well, for me, I always knew that there was a higher love that was possible, a more connected love, a more respectful love. And so, I named off some of these things. And I said, so both of our hearts were literally just out there looking for that higher love, right? And what if we went through, he got married once for 2.5 years and then went through a lot of girlfriends for the last 18 years. I got married once and was in it for 17 years and then got divorced and met him a few years later. The difference was he was trying out love with a lot of different ladies. He was having girlfriends and girlfriends and girlfriends and going, no, that's not it. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. And I was like, well, this is absolutely not it. Like, I didn't follow my heart. So I just knew immediately, So we all will get there our own way, whether that's for love, whether that's for better health, whether that's for healing emotions. You have to know what you want. And so you kind of got to get very clear on that. And then once you're in alignment here and you've healed, you can start envisioning all the other things you want. I want a happy life. I want a good career. I want a new home. I want a car. And you start to see how the more in alignment you are, those things manifest much easier. So get yourself right on the inside, then the outside starts to take care of itself. But a lot of people go backwards. They try to get everything right out here, and then they realize, oh, it's always been about me. So if I encourage my clients to go from the inside out, so that the more they are straight here with themselves, then anything that it is that they go after, any dream, any goal, starts to become very easy.
Yeah, thank you so much for your practical tools that you generously give to us, and that is just so true. And yeah, I think especially in a relationship or trying to find love, we try to go on dating apps and try to hit the numbers, try to get like many guys as possible, rather than actually knowing what we really want in a relationship. And I love that you said using 5 senses to really experience love for yourself. And yeah, I feel like that's visualization, but it's like more than that, because you're actually feeling it in details and sensing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that. I think for a lot of people, like you said, like it's difficult for them to understand what they really want, even because you have a lot of belief system and from your parents or grandparents, and maybe the things that you wrote down the list is something that you don't want, but maybe the society tells you that you should want, or your parents are saying that they want it for you. It's not really what you want. So I think it's a good experiment for everyone to do, just writing down the things that you really want and ask you like, is this something that I really want in my life?
Yeah. Be brutally honest with yourself. So it's also an exercise in trusting yourself. I mean, maybe you want a guy with long hair and you think your parents wouldn't approve of that, or your friends wouldn't like that, but who cares? Like, that's attractive to me. I want that, and that sounds so silly, but it's those kinds of things that we start to doubt ourselves and we question ourselves and go, I shouldn't like that. Why should I like that? So yeah, you got to be brutally honest with yourself and take everyone else out of the equation, because when it comes to you and your happiness, it doesn't matter what they want. It matters what you want.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And what you said was actually totally spot on in the last dating experience that I had. I was dating
Oh,
with this
really?
long hair guy, yeah. And I did think, oh, my parents didn't like him, or like, things like that. That is my paradigm. That's our conditioning. That's so true.
That's so funny. That happens to me all the time. I'll just pull an example out of the air and it's the person I'm talking to, it's their example. So that's funny.
Angie knows my dating experience already. Like,
what? I actually do that all the time. I pull names out of thin air and I'm like, and they go, how'd you know his name? I'm like, oh, I didn't. I just picked it. But that's me, like, just tapping into the energy and knowing like what's going on with you, what's going on with me. We're all connected. The more we pay attention, the more we notice, and we feel it in the subtle frequencies, even across these airwaves, across the ocean, to each other. So it's very incredible.
Yeah, it's so incredible. Is there anything you want to say as last words, or you want to share?
No, I just want to say thank you, Yoshie. I have been on like a number of podcasts because people are kind of intrigued with that story and how we would end up together. And yet it is very miraculous. And yet in my mind, it makes total sense, but it's understanding that we are all connected, and really getting it down to the core of what I do to myself, I'm doing to everyone. What I do to another, I'm doing to everyone. It's not just affecting one, there's a ripple effect in our lives. And can we be aware enough to say, I wouldn't want this, so I'm not going to do it to another person. And there's even an ancient saying that I think it originates from some Native American Indian tribe. And they say, when they make a decision or a choice, because you and I talked about choices, their tribe believes that when you make a decision, make sure that it will only affect the next 7 generations positively. If you can't make that decision that way, then don't do it. And I thought, that's so interesting, because they've known, when we get to these indigenous cultures, they know these things, they're true. And we will be affected by those who came before us, and we will affect those who come after us and those who we interact with. So, get right in your heart, have a pure intention for what you're doing. And then know that if you do have a pure intention, go for it. It's okay. Not everyone will be okay with what you do, but then that's for them to heal. You haven't hurt anyone by following your heart. That's for them to get straight with, why does that bother me? I don't know why her following her heart bothers me. They'll have to get that right in their own life. But when you're following your heart, you're doing no wrong. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, giving yourself a permission to really follow your heart, because it's not being selfish, it's not being self-centered. It's actually for you and for others, and like you said, next generations also.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's really it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angie, for doing this with me and sharing your wisdom and tools so openly and generously. I absolutely loved your stories and your wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on here, Yoshie. And I'm excited for what you're doing. And I love to share the message. So I'll share your message, and I'm glad that we got connected.